Pandemic Parenting. I am your host, Greg Freeberry, and I'm repping my DARE shirt today for those of you that remember the highly successful DARE program. It's a little bit of a throwback to my childhood, so I was excited to wear it today. Today is a special day on Pandemic Parenting because I'm interviewing two people at once, which is the first for me. We have Sophia Tyler, who is the author of The Friendly Mouse, and she's young. She's still in university. And so she's coming on with her mom, Cinda, to talk a little bit about her book and the message, which is the golden rule. And if you're not familiar with the golden rule, it's simply treat others the way that you'd like to be treated. And in this time of stress and pandemic and what's going on in the Ukraine, it's super easy to get caught up in all the negatives. And I feel like just a little bit of kindness and generosity can really be overlooked. So this episode is really just about regrounding with everything that's going on in the world today and just coming back to kindness and service and just treating everyone the way that you want to be treated, the golden rule. Because it's easy to get caught up in all this negative stuff. And for me, like love and kindness, that's the solution to the world's problems. Of course, it's way more complicated than that, but this episode is just one small step on that journey. So, as usual, if you haven't been checking out my website, go ahead and go to thinkandEvolve.academy, where I write blog posts on education and helping your students learn better and maximize their academic success. And also follow me on Instagram at think.and.evolve, where I share funny memes and I share more stuff on education. You can get some quick reels about my ideas for education. They're pretty advanced and revolutionary, in my opinion. So go ahead and check it out and follow me. Really appreciate it. And now, without further ado, I give you Sophie Tyler and her mom, Cinda. Hello and welcome to Pandemic Parenting. I am your host, Greg Freeberry. I'm very excited today because I'm doing my first dual interview with Sophia Tyler and her mom, Cinda. So Cinda and Sophie, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much.
So Sophie wrote a book, a children's book called The Friendly Mouse. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that today and the themes involved in that. But before we dive into that, I usually just like to ask a few rapid fire questions to you guys, just to kind of, ease into things and help the audience get to know you a little bit. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, of course. Sure.
All right. So I'll ask, you guys can both answer in whatever order. So the first question is, what's your favorite dessert?
Ice cream.
Ice cream, any particular flavor?
Chocolate chip.
Chocolate chip. Ooh, I'm more of a vanilla man myself, but I appreciate a good chocolate chip.
Sorry, Sophie, that one was just too easy. I couldn't let that low-hanging fruit go.
My favorite dessert is chocolate or molten chocolate lava cake. Like brownie thing that has like chocolate in the middle with ice cream. It's my favorite thing ever.
All right, excellent answers. You guys are good on desserts, I'm sure.
So far, so good.
All right, next question. What's the last book you read and what did you get out of it?
I think the last book I read was Beneath the Scarlet Sky. It's a true story about this kid who drove a Nazi soldier around. And what I got out of it was I just got to learn more about the history of the Holocaust, but also just of like the background story of like soldiers. And I just love learning about history, and especially when it's like a cool story like that. And it just painted a really cool picture, and they're actually going to make a movie out of it, and Tom Holland is going to play the main character. So that made it extra interesting.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, it'd be an interesting, so it's kind of like a first person's perspective of this person's experience driving soldiers around.
Yeah, it's really
I
cool.
feel that'd be like a really unique perspective. Amazing.
Sure.
And what about you, Cinda?
I just finished a book that took me so long to read because it had so much in it, but it was called Primal Wound. Primal Wound. And it was a book written to give people a perspective of adoption through maybe a different lens than how it's typically portrayed in our North American culture. So we have 2 daughters that are adopted. And so I really appreciated just a different perspective. But it was a lot to take in, and it took me, I love to read, but it took me probably 3 months to read it.
Wow.
Because it was all, new info.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, because I think there is a particular idea of what adoption is. So new information is always good on that.
Right.
All right. Now I'm thinking, so if you were to learn like a foreign language, what foreign language would you want to learn?
Ooh, I would love to learn how to speak French because I think it just sounds so pretty.
All right, beautiful French. All right.
Uh-huh.
What about you, Cinda?
I would say Spanish. We spend quite a bit of time in Guatemala, and my Spanish can get me by if I'm talking to 4 and 5-year-olds. But, I get any older than that, and, it's pretty humbling. So I would love to be better at Spanish.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I like Portuguese, so we're all in the Romance language.
I guess so.
All right, and then last question before we get started here. How about, who's your biggest role model and why?
Ooh.
I like to mix up the like kind of fun ones with the little deeper ones,
Yeah. I would definitely say my mom and my dad. I just feel like I've learned a lot from both of them, and still to this day, like I always tell my mom, like when I'm a 50-year-old woman, I'm still going to be calling her for advice. So I would definitely say my parents, just because like I think I lean on them a lot for wisdom and just for support. So I would say my mom and my dad.
Amazing. And you got to say that because she's here, right?
I know.
I mean, she had to.
All right, so now what about you?
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because I would also say my own mom and dad for sure. I've been asked that question a lot in my life, and for many years, I always answered my dad. And then, my mom's like, what am I like, and so truly they both are, but my dad very much empowered me with the confidence to be able to make decisions and to stand by them. Really instilled that inner confidence in me. So he's always been a mentor and a role model. And I'm in my 50s and I still call my parents for advice. So Sophie, that door stays open.
That's fantastic. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for that. Now let's get into it. So, Sophie, you wrote the book, The Friendly Mouse, and you're actually still in university, right? So I'm just curious, like, what inspired you to write this book at such a young age?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how it started. In high school, I was in a religion class, and my teacher assigned us an assignment that was basically to write a children's story and make it rooted in a Bible verse. And so I chose the Bible verse, treat others as you want to be treated, and then kind of built off of that. And then that's kind of how the Friendly Mouse came to be. But I also, I loved getting stories read to me when I was growing up. And so I feel like in the back of my mind, when I was writing the book, I just kept thinking of like books like the Berenstain Bears or like Peter Rabbit and books like that kind of just like drew my attention. So I kind of tried to write it thinking of those stories. That just kind of made me feel good.
That's cool. I was a big Berenstain Bears guy myself.
So good.
And yeah, and I was also raised Catholic, so I went to private Catholic school all the way through university, so high school and university. So
Okay.
I had a lot of those classes too. So that's pretty cool. So did you already, when you wrote that for your class, was it already about a mouse and stuff like that? And then you kind of just like refined it?
It was, yeah. And it's funny because if you saw like the original one, you would see like all my clip art pictures of like the mouse and seagull. And it's just so cool to see how even like the pictures have been just like modified and just it just looks so great now, the pictures. But it's funny to think back on like what my vision was then of
Yeah.
just like these like silly little clip art pictures. But yeah, it was still a mouse, seagull, Mr. Roo.
Very cool.
Hmm.
And so what do you like? There's like a ton of children's books out there. You know, my mom read a bajillion to me when I was younger. So I'm just thinking, what like makes yours special? What do you think yours brings to the table that maybe some others might not?
Yeah. I feel like there's not personally, I don't think being a Christian is a very popular thing right now. And I don't think if you were to ask somebody on the street, I don't think Christians honestly have a good reputation a lot of the time. And so I'm hoping that this book kind of represents really the heart of being a follower of Jesus through like a tiny little mouse. And I just feel like there's not a lot of books out there that show how to love people in a genuine and authentic way, and in a way how Jesus treated people, and how there were so many people who didn't, just like Mouse, there was so many people who didn't treat Jesus with love or respect when he would always give love and respect to other people. And so I think it just maybe paints a good story of what it looks like to not be treated with kindness, but show it anyway.
Hmm.
And I just feel like that's such a rare thing nowadays, is to be kind even when you don't feel good, and to only be kind when you're feeling great. But this is a story about a mouse who had awful life circumstances, but he was still so kind to other people.
Yeah, yeah. I actually, that was actually going to bring my next question because I read this story and I was really impressed that there was that part with the seagull. So the seagull flies over and refuses to take the mouse to work, even though it probably wouldn't have been a big deal. But then when the mouse is in a position to help the seagull, the mouse still helps the seagull anyway, even though he was denied earlier in the
Yeah.
book. So that's really beautiful because it can be really it's like easier to be kind to someone when they're kind to you, right?
Oh, for sure.
But
Right.
when someone is not even just like neutral, but has actually actively been like mean to you or rude to you in some way, to then actually still say, yes, I'm going to be kind to this person. I think that was really powerful part of the book.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to turn to Cinda a little bit here. So Cinda, was Sophie always so service oriented, or were there things you did as a parent to kind of help instill those principles into her?
Well, I mean, hands down, we were very blessed with Sophie. She came into the world just with a tender heart, and was always very, very loving, and just has always enjoyed life and enjoyed other people. And so, she was a pretty easy daughter to raise. At the same time, she is the fourth out of 7 children. And so my husband and I always have approached parenting with the goal of helping our kids to think of others first. And now that they're older, they, kind of get together and reminisce together about, remember when mom used to drop us off to school and we'd get out of the car and she'd say the same thing every day. And it was, look for someone who's lonely. When you go into the lunchroom, look for someone who's lonely, because there's someone in that lunchroom that really needs you to come alongside them today. And, after the 790th time of saying that, they'd be like, okay, mom, okay. But very much, our desire in raising our children was that they would really have a heart for others. whether at the specific point in time others might look like they deserve kindness or not deserve kindness has nothing to do with it. That, God calls us to treat each other with kindness because, they're made in his image. And we are, an instrument that he can use if we allow him to use us. So look for those opportunities. So, that was just something, we certainly didn't do it perfectly. And, we've got 7 kids and not one of them is anywhere near perfect, but they have, they do all have like that foundation of looking, for others that they can notice and intentionally reach out to with kindness.
Incredible. Yeah, that's such a beautiful message to just keep spreading that kindness throughout the world. For parents out there that may want to instill that kindness into their kids more, do you have any other ways that maybe they could start implementing that for their own families? I know you mentioned just reiterating that message every single day. Look for people that are lonely and go and help. But is there anything else you might want to share for parents out there?
We I don't know, Sophie, you might remember it more from a child's perspective, but I remember like just role modeling. And, when the kids were little, this was really easy to do because it was just like acting and it was fun for them to do. But to role model, someone maybe that had been kind or that had excluded you or had been unkind, and excluded you, and how, the next day when you were then in a situation and had the opportunity to retaliate and exclude them, maybe what's another way that you could do that? And we really talked a lot about it, and it was just like a normal rhythm in our home to talk a lot about it. And when the kids were young, to like act it out or role play it out at the dinner table or at bedtime, was just kind of part of the fabric of, our home that we tried to weave in.
Awesome. Yeah, I think role play and role like that is really powerful because it really teaches empathy, because you have to step into the other person's shoes. And
Right.
I know when I'm going through my life, that's what I try and do. I'm like, all right, well, what's this person's perspective? Because if I can
Right.
understand where they're coming from, then I can make more compassionate decisions. Because a lot of times, I make assumptions like, oh, this person is doing this because X, Y, Z. And probably the real reason is something completely different. They're out to get me, or they're just like trying to be mean to me. But in real life, they're probably just upset about something else, or they have stuff going on in their life. So the more I'm able to empathize, the more I'm able to, be compassionate.
Right.
So much good stuff from Sophie and Cinda so far. And I'm talking a lot about kindness. And there's a few points I wanted to touch on real quick. First of all, Sophie included this character in her book called Mr. Seagull, and the Mr. Seagull flies to work every day while the mouse has to walk to work really far. And the mouse is always running late. And then the boss is upset because the mouse is late. So the mouse is like, hey, Mr. Seagull, could you please give me a ride? And the seagull's like, oh, I don't have any time for that. And so then later on in the book, I don't want to spoil it, but we'll just say the mouse is in a position, Mr. Mouse is in position to help Seagull because Seagull's been injured and he can't fly anymore. And instead of denying the seagull, Mr. Mouse gives him a ride in his new car to work. And I think that's a really beautiful lesson because, like I was mentioning, it's very easy to be kind to other people that are kind to you. And when you're kind to them, you can be like, oh, I'm such a kind person, I'm a good person, and pat yourself on the back. And to an extent, that is true. Like being kind to other people that are kind to you is a good thing, obviously. The real test is when someone is mean to you, unkind to you, or even downright cruel to you. Can you still treat that person with kindness, even in the face of, probably being very defensive of someone and having maybe some negative feelings towards that person if they've been mean to you? And that is where the magic is. That's the true test of kindness. Can you be kind even in those situations? And a lot of times, at least for me, I'm not. Sometimes my other emotions get the better of me and I'm not kind in those situations. But I'm always striving to get to that place, because I feel if we can even treat our enemies like someone we love, then that will solve a lot of problems, because it all comes back to kindness and love. And so it's important for me, and hopefully for all you parents out there, to practice that. Practice being kind to people that are not necessarily kind to you, and not deny them. And see what happens. See what happens when you try that out. See, maybe that'll totally change their disposition around towards you. You never know. It's like I said, that kindness, even in those situations, is magic. And then another thing that Cinda said, I loved that she said, like, go find the person that's lonely and, sit with them in the lunchroom. Because I know so many times when I'm sad, I would go out into the world and I just go for a walk and I'd just be sad and ruminating in my own head. And then if someone was a total stranger even would come up to me and be like, hey man, you just look a little down. Are you okay? And, I'd always be like, yeah, I'm fine. But even in that moment, just when someone actually genuinely checked in on me and asked if I was okay, that simple act of kindness often brightened my mood and made me feel less sad. So you never know what a simple act of kindness can do. Again, that person was probably just continued and went about their day and had no idea the impact that they had on me, and just making me feel a lot lighter and less sad, because I never really told them. But it just goes to show, just even a small act of kindness, just checking in on someone, hey, are you okay? And genuinely seeing if they are, can go a long way and can be really impactful in someone's life, even if they don't let you know about it. And then finally, role playing. So role playing and actually having your kids step into another's shoes and feel what it's like to be that other person. Because we were touching on it a little bit when I was talking to Cinda, and Sophie is we are operating from our own reality, right? And we have all these assumptions that we feel that everyone else has those same assumptions. But that's not always the case. In fact, most of the time, that's probably not the case. And so being able to practice empathy, and then when you're able to step into that place, then you're able to really make more compassionate decisions, because then it's not oh, this person's necessarily out to get me, or they're trying to be mean to me intentionally. Maybe their boss just yelled at them earlier that day, and then they're just they're thinking about that, and they're just it has nothing to do with you. So instilling in that in your kids, having them role play someone else's position, super powerful for building empathy, super powerful for building empathy, super powerful for building compassion, super powerful for building kindness. And so I think that's a great thing to do. So role play with your kids. Ask them, well, what do you think that other person was thinking? What do you think was going on in their head? What do you think they were feeling? And it just helps the kids get out of their own mind, out of their own reality a little bit. And you'll see that when they're able to do that, their kindness goes up. And that's what we want. We want more kindness out of people. Okay, so now let's go back to Sophie and learn more about the friendly mouse and all the wonderful lessons to learn from that book. All right, so the book is mostly about the golden rule, right? Which says treat others the way that you'd like to be treated. So I'll ask this question to both of you, but we'll start with Sophie. So why do you think it's so important to be teaching kids the golden rule right now, especially during this pandemic?
Yeah. I just think reaching kids at that young age is so important and beneficial and special. And just because I think that thinking of when I was a little girl, I was so easily influenced by people who are older than me, and my parents and my older siblings and stuff. And so to hear that over and over, being kind to people. It's just kind of like seems like the norm. So like reaching kids when they're small, when they're little, and have minds that are kind of desperate for that guidance or like need that guidance. I think it's so important to fill their minds with pure and sweet and just loving thoughts, and just living your life looking for ways to be kind to people. And we live in such a broken world. So to be able to have the opportunity to reach kids and anybody, but kids, and influence kindness and love, I think is so special and so important.
That's awesome. I really resonate with that because that's kind of been my journey as well. Like I used to be an engineer, and then I kind of ran into some problems in my life that I wasn't handling very well emotionally. And then I spent all this time and money going to programs, learning how to kind of deal with that kind of stuff. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be so like empowering and incredible if we could give these tools and strategies to kids when they're young,
Right.
so they don't have to deal with this when they're
Right.
older. So I really love that message of, kids are so malleable when they're young. So just
Yeah.
get it in early. And I really liked that you said that, it's not just say like parents or authority figures that are influencing kids. It's like they're little, like maybe older friends or older siblings, like people that maybe even they could influence them more because they're a little more relatable, because like your
Right.
siblings are younger. So I think that's really incredible that you're out there like putting out that positive message. All right. And Cinda, what about you? Why do you think it's so important to teach the golden rule, especially during these times of pandemic when everyone's really stressed out and all that good stuff?
I've been parenting for 29 years. Our oldest son is 29. And I feel like just, I don't know if it's the pandemic or if it's just, the world that we live in today, but I feel like there's just more and more of a self-centeredness and more, just each of us wanting to put ourselves and our own needs at the forefront of everything. And if we don't achieve what we think we deserve or want, all of a sudden we're a victim.
Mhm.
And want to really influence, or want to really expound upon that and put focus on the fact that I'm a victim and look what, I didn't get, or look what they did to me. And that's just exhausting. And I think to encourage each other, especially to encourage our children to just be other focused, is so counter-cultural right now. And I think takes really being intentional, either on the part of the individual or the parent who's parenting the child. There are times when, people are victims. I'm not discounting that, but there's a lot of times when we do just need to realize that, the world does not revolve around us. And, how can I just let my own desires and needs just, simmer down a little bit and really choose to intentionally put the focus on others. And in the long run, that's really so much more fun and so much more fulfilling to be able to be, that outward focused rather than just, be so focused on yourself and what's anybody done for me lately, and who's hurt me, and instead of just really taking your focus and pointing it elsewhere, I feel like is more of a need today than ever before.
Yeah, I agree. I found in my own life when I've played the victim, like whether I was victimized or not, whether that was true, irrelevant of that, like coming from a place of I'm a victim would breed resentment in me. And then I'd act that resentment out in the world. And again, regardless of like what happened, taking personal responsibility for my own emotions has been much more beneficial, I would say, for myself and for the world at large, because I'm able to serve in a better capacity, I would say.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now we'll take a little bit of a turn. Just talk about reading in general. So what are some of the social and emotional benefits of reading to children? Sophie, you're studying social work, right? So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, just based off of my own experience, I think it's just like such a peaceful thing. And even just like nowadays, I feel like it's so much more common just to like watch a TV show or watch a movie, but to like have somebody sit down and have somebody older than you read to you is just so special. And it just like it provokes like or it invokes conversation and just like togetherness. And I just think it's sweet and it's wholesome just to like be able to sit with each other and read and to have somebody read to you is just like it's so special. And sometimes I even think like I miss somebody reading to me because it'd be so weird if I'm a 22-year-old and someone's reading to me. But I think it's just so calming and so peaceful and just like encourages togetherness and just sitting with each other and escaping reality and reading a story. It's so special and so cute and fun.
Yeah, it can be a really powerful way to just bond with.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's incredible. And Cinda, did you always read to your kids and Sophie?
Yes, we did. We did. And again, my parents always read to us growing up at nighttime. It was just like a ritual that, my mom would kind of be taking care of the younger kids and my dad would read like to myself and my older siblings. And so it was supernatural for me to take that happy memory and that happy experience and then, do that all over again with our own children. And it was just a part of every single night, after dinner and before bed, gathering like the younger kids and doing younger books and then going to tuck in older kids and doing older books. And eventually, initially I was reading to them and then eventually, they would read to me. And, there is something very intimate and bonding, of just holding a small child in your lap as you read to them. And it just, I think, allows the imagination just to grow and be nurtured and, just matured and to be able to expound on a child's vocabulary and their imagination and just to give them that love for reading is so much more rich than you're going to get from, watching a Netflix show. Hands down.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my mom swears by it. She said the reason I became an engineer was because she was studying engineering at the time and she was reading like crazy amount of like engineering textbooks. So like even in the womb, she was like, you were just like getting all this information. And then obviously when I was born, she like read to me all the time. And honestly, it took me a little while to like develop the love of reading. It wasn't really until probably I graduated college, but I'm still very appreciative that my mom really made a point to read to me when I was young, because we had literally like hundreds of books and it was almost like a sad day when she got rid of them. All right, now Sophie and Cinda and I are discussing just reading to your kids in general. And they touched on a couple of important things. That is simply just a great way to bond with your kids instead of watching a show together, which can be in a way bonding if you're all there and enjoying it together. But watching a show or a movie is very passive. Reading is active, so you're actually engaging with each other in a more active way. And so it can be a really intimate experience between parents and their own children. And on top of that, I also wanted to add that like there's so many studies out there that show the more kids get read to and the more that they read when they're young, like the more intelligent they become later on in life. So it's really essential to read to your kids if you want them to be smart and intelligent. And I mean, I can confirm that at least from some anecdotal evidence. The most intelligent kids that I work with in my tutoring business is I go over to their house and they have bookcases full of books, like sometimes rooms full of books on all sorts of subjects, ranging from, you know, history to like fiction to like textbooks, like all sorts of books on books on books, and business books and books on politics, and just all this beautiful information. And we are moving into an age where a lot of information is available on the internet in video form. So you can watch YouTube and get a lot of videos that way. And I think those are really powerful too, because that's a medium that I use a lot and is a very powerful to condense a lot of information to a short few minutes. Or especially if it's like a visual thing that you need to do. Like if I'm doing like a Photoshop or something, I need to actually see people like moving the mouse around and clicking it. But there's some things that I think just don't lend themselves well to video, and only the written form, like books, can really communicate the message appropriately. And so that's why I think books will never really go away, and like the written form will never really go away. And blog posts and writing and all that stuff will still always have their place. So it's very important kids are able to read and read well and able to digest information through reading, because you can make them more intelligent and, like they said, like Cinda said, increase their imagination, increase their creativity. I know when I like reading helped me a lot, just build out my own internal like imagination and be able to create worlds and increase my creativity. So there's a whole bunch of benefits to reading. So if you're not reading to your kids, definitely start. All right. And now moving into the final phase of our interview here, and Cinda and Sophie are going to share some more resources and stuff that can help you if you want to dig further into these topics. So let's get back to it.
Sophie, your book is coming out pretty soon at the end of March. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
And do you have any plans on writing future books, or is this just like a one-time deal? Or, and like, if you did, do you have any ideas like what you'd write about?
As of right now, I know my dad is kind of trying to talk me into writing another one. And my grandma wants me to write a storybook about her cat. And I think it'd be so fun, but just right now I'm kind of trying to prioritize just my social work education. I'm getting my master's next year, and then I want to get a social work job after that. So right now, writing isn't my first priority, but it's also something that's such a fun creative outlet, and I love to be creative like that. So I could totally see myself writing in the future. But as of right now, my main priority and focus is on social work and getting my master's and stuff like that.
Yeah, school's important. School's important. Yeah. And you never know where you might go, because like I said, I got my master's in electrical engineering, and then I became a math tutor and teacher, and now I'm doing this pandemic parenting show. And if had you asked me, when I was going through school, you're going to be doing this in 10 years or whatever, I'd been like, okay, whatever you say. So yeah, but it's good to be prepared.
Yeah.
So I really love that you have this creative outlet of stories and storytelling. Why do you think narratives like that, especially with pictures, are so powerful, especially for kids?
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's kind of fun when it's like an animal, and just like, I don't know, it just makes it so innocent and cute. And I know when I was a kid, I still love animals. And so to kind of like associate something you love and something cute with like happy and good morals, I think is like a good narrative to keep in a kid's mind. And when you use animals and funny characters like that, it's easier to remember that kind of like good kindness. And still to this day, I like remember different stories of the Berenstain Bears of like, I remember a specific story about throwing tantrums that the Berenstain Bears wrote about. And I still remember that to this day, because I remember the pictures and I remember how it went. And so to write a book that uses cute characters and uses beautiful illustrations, I think is a good way for to keep in the back of your mind how to be kind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's reading your book was, I actually got like a little teared up myself, because I'm like very emotional about these things, and I was like, oh, the mouse is so helpful. I love it. Yeah, I think and the pictures are really helpful, and they were very fun. And how did you illustrate that? Did you illustrate those yourself?
I did not know. A man named Matthew did.
Okay.
And he's incredible. Oh my gosh, he would send me his sketches, or in a group would send his sketches, and I was just always astounded by them. And he would ask me like what route I wanted him to kind of go in, and I sent him pictures of Peter Rabbit and Snow White and like different old-fashioned pictures from my childhood, and he just took it and ran with it, and he did such a great job. I love the pictures.
Yeah, it looks really good.
All right, another quick aside here. Sophie was talking about how the pictures and the animals and the cute animals in the book really helped her remember the stories a lot more. And then so I was just thinking, like, when you're teaching kids, or just people in general, but like especially kids, you want the material to be engaging. So the more engaging you can make the story or whatever you're trying to learn, the more people are apt to pay attention, the more kids are apt to pay attention. So this is true of all people, right? Like if you're watching like a movie and it's boring, you check out, you tune out. But if it's like captivating, if the story's amazing or the show is amazing, you tune in, you're like laser focused. And then you can like do all the quotes, and you can, talk about it with your friends later on because you like really paid attention. So that's just throwing that out there, that when you're trying to teach your kids, try to make it really engaging and fun and captivating, instead of just like listing off facts or something like that. If you're trying to teach them something, try and get it so that's relating to their world and relating to the world around them, because then they can actually engage, and then it's not just one ear out the other. So a great way is obviously pictures and illustrations, but also just telling a story with interesting characters, give them some interesting details, or an interesting story about, like, for me, like math facts. Like I always like to apply math facts to the real world. Like, did you know that this math fact is true about this dam in Amsterdam, or this giant mountain out in the Appalachians, or something that's like related to nature or engineering, where it really grounds those math facts in reality. And then it's like, oh, that is actually interesting, instead of it just being some random knowledge that's not applicable to anything. So you're teaching kids, when you're teaching your kids, try to be as engaging as possible and create stories that last, that are stick. Yeah, that's a good word. Sticky stories. All right. I just want to jump in and do that aside real quick. So let's get back to it.
Thank you both so much for coming on. We're getting towards the end here. Final couple of questions I just want to ask is, like, if you have any more resources, are there like favorite websites or apps or anything like that that you really love to help instill that love for reading into kids, or something that maybe parents could use as a resource or anything like that, Sophie?
Yeah. I personally really like there's like a Jesus Calling app that has a devotional for every day. And you don't even actually have to get the app. You can just look it up online, like the date and then Jesus Calling. And it just has a lot of like beautiful words and a good way to start your day. And I feel like I always get something out of it. But I also really like to look up on Spotify little sermons. My favorite is sermons from Elevation Church with Pastor Stephen Furtick. And I get a ton out of his sermons. And also, as a social work major, I'm a huge advocate of mindfulness, mindful meditation. And I think even looking those up on YouTube and on Spotify, and just giving yourself a minute to reflect and pick out those toxic thoughts, and even role playing in your head. How can I handle these situations better? How can I come off as kind and not just make this a bigger situation? So just calming stuff like that, you're just getting wisdom from other places and taking time for yourself to just be peaceful and grounded, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a big part of my journey, was meditation and even journaling and stuff like that. And I was like, well, why can't we give this to kids? So, get them started early.
Yeah, seriously.
All right. And Cinda, what about you? Is there anything that you'd like to share for parents out there that may be good resources? I know your kids may be a little bit older, but
our youngest is 16, or excuse me, 15. Sorry, our youngest is 15, and so we're still, kind of in the throes of some of that adolescent parenting. But one resource that we used all through raising our kids was Growing Kids God's Way. And it very much just gave us, moral and Christian foundation to be able to draw parenting information from. There's so much parenting information out there, and some of it is, really not very helpful, and some of it really is. Growing Kids God's Way was one place where we just got some really good foundational tools to be able to look at those tools and incorporate them into our family, and just encouraging parents, just find what interests your kids and just read. And I think that there's so many great books, that are maybe very culturally acceptable, that maybe are beyond where some younger kids are. And sometimes parents want to rush their kids through those really innocent, sweet times of childhood. And I just encourage people to enjoy the process and to allow your children to be young and innocent during that very unique part of their time, and to read to them accordingly. Maybe don't start, with Harry Potter when your child's 2.
Yeah. I'll save that for a little later down the road. Awesome. All right. So then just my final question is, if people want to find out more about, say, the Friendly Mouse and when it comes out and everything, where can they find your stuff online, Sophie?
Yeah, so actually right now there is a pre-sale on Amazon, so you can pre-order it. So you can, if you look it up on Amazon, I'm pretty sure it'll just pop up. And then Mom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that there's a landing page as well for it, where there's just like different little things of like how to be kind. I know that there's like a little paragraph where I'm kind of telling about who I am. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So
I think that the Amazon is the easiest place to get your hands on the book and on some information. And it's listed on there right now under the Friendly Mouse, Sophia Tyler.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah. And I'll definitely include that link in the description of the video and all that good stuff. Cinda, do you have any final pearls of wisdom before I let you go?
I would just encourage parents to enjoy the process. Sometimes, we can get so absorbed in the urgent things of life and the urgent things of being a parent that we lose perspective on what's important. And to just encourage parents to focus on what's important, because urgency is always going to try and push the important out, getting bedtimes and homework and tennis practice, and the list goes on, but to not let the urgent push the important out of the way. And that takes very intentional parenting, but it's fun and it's worth it. And I remind myself of that. I try to do that daily, and to remind other parents of that too.
That's a beautiful message to end on. So I think we'll stop there. Cinda and Sophie, thank you so much for coming on Pandemic Parenting. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so much,
having
guys.
us.
Yeah, of course. And good luck with your book release. And maybe in the future, we'll see a sequel to The Friendly Mouse.
I hope so.
And now it's time for the wrap up recap. Yeah. All right, so today on the show, I had Sophie Tyler come on, and she wrote the book The Friendly Mouse, which is all about the golden rule. And her mom, Cinda, joined us as well, just to give some friendly parenting advice after parenting for 29 years and 7 kids, including 2 adopted kids. So she's got a wealth of experience in parenting as well. And we really talked about just kindness and the golden rule and treating others the way you want to be treated. Now, this is something that we like most of us get taught or have at least heard of when we're growing up, and it's easy to be like, yeah, we should be kind to others. It's obvious to just like say that that's the appropriate thing to do, but this episode's really calling us back to really embodying that kindness out in the world, regardless of whether someone is kind back to you or not. And when we instill that in our kids, that creates that kindness, that breeds that kindness inside of them. And then they can go out in the world and be more kind and more loving and breed more kindness and more lovingness. And it's a virtuous circle instead of a vicious circle. And we want that virtuous circle to build to just a loving world in general where we all live together in harmony. And I know that's like a kind of like a woo, all right, world peace and everything, but it's possible. It's possible. And so, it starts with Sophie writing a book called The Friendly Mouse, and about a mouse that actually acts out in the world in kindness. And every time that story gets read to a new child, that instills that kindness into that child so that they can go and act that out in the world and breed more kindness, produce more kindness in the world. And so it's really about being kind, being loving, and instilling that in your own kids. And then we also just talked about reading to kids in general, how reading can be such a wonderful bonding moment with your children, can really build a cool relationship with them through their stories, and can help them learn, become more intelligent with this engaging information. And they can help develop their vocabulary. And when they're older, then they can have good reading comprehension skills and be able to obtain information themselves. So reading is so powerful in so many ways. And I'm really appreciative that Sophie and Cinda came on to share all of that knowledge. And so this concludes another episode of Pandemic Parenting. So thank you for joining, and go check out Think&Evolve.academy. Think&Evolve is the way to be. All right, until next week, I love you all. See you next time.